I am profoundly disappointed with Imran Khan. Two things we talked about. Prime Minister Imran Khan, we had greater expectations from your government. This is not a whitewash. This is a black mark of shame. Ali Zaidi, unless I receive an apology, I shall sue him in the London High Court. This is the kind of report that I would have expected from a mafia lawyer.
Broadsheet Commission has released its report, and it has referred to you as well, and I'm sure you have now seen the report. And Justice Azmat Saeed Sheikh has said that you are a convicted felon. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I ask you through your camera to ask first-year law students in Pakistan, what is the difference between civil contumacious behavior and a convicted felon? I have no doubt the first-year law students would know what this fool who is pretending to be a justice of the Supreme Court of Pakistan would know the difference. Civil contempt is when the dictates of conscience prevent you from obeying an order. In this instance, my contumacious behavior was people's lives were at stake. In Iran, people would have been murdered by a criminal regime. I paid the price. It's my badge of honor. It's the proudest thing I've ever done to submit to my conscience as opposed to the dictates of a foolish court. That court, that judge, in the usual ways of the British establishment, resigned the bench. He died a year or so later. I didn't resign anything. Immediately after that, I was appointed the head of public interest law by the law faculty of the University of Oxford. This fool who's written this report has clearly not considered that. But he hasn't considered anything because he hasn't even got in touch with me. They didn't get in touch.
Which minister?
Mr.
Ali Zaidi?
Yeah.
Ali Zaidi.
Ali Zaidi, yeah.
So he was in touch with you?
He was in touch, yes. In good faith, I tried to maintain the dialogue, and because I'd given a commitment, because I rather foolishly believed that Imran Khan's government is different. I was really very naive in that. I believed that he was serious about fighting corruption. And yet, even Imran cannot be so naive as to think this is a judicial report. This is the kind of report that I would have expected from a mafia lawyer. Roy Cohen would have written a report like this. You don't go and pretend, masquerade as though you have engaged in a judicial inquiry, and you don't call a single witness. The key witnesses, myself, not only he has libelled me, and through your camera I am telling him within 7 days, unless I receive an apology, I shall sue him in the London High Court.
Who, sorry?
This foolish man who masquerades as a former justice of a Supreme Court.
Justice Azmat.
I will issue proceedings against him for defamation, for libel. This is not a whitewash. This is a black mark of shame in the history of the Pakistani judiciary today. Members of the Pakistani judiciary either condemn this man or they should walk with their heads down, bowed in front of the public. This is not a judicial inquiry.
What will you say to the Prime Minister Imran Khan who ordered this inquiry?
Well, he ordered it. He should have made sure that his order is consistent with what the law is. He should have made sure that the order is consistent with what is a definition of a judicial inquiry. He should have... the very first point, you don't appoint someone who at the time pertinent to this inquiry was himself an officer of NAB. That's what he was. If this man had a grain of integrity, he would have written to the Prime Minister on the record and said, I have to recuse myself for one simple reason. There's a conflict of interest here. But he didn't do that. Well, do I need to say any more about a man who does not see the palpable conflict of interest and goes and does I like to call it a whitewash, but it's not a whitewash. It does a hatchet job attacking the reputation of individuals who the courts in England have heard and have accepted. I would remind this fool that Sir Anthony Evans accepted my evidence. The High Court of England and Wales accepted our evidence when Pakistan appealed. Sir Anthony Evans accepted the evidence of Dr. Aisha Sadiqa and did not accept the evidence of the man who does not appear here. That should be quite enough for the people of Pakistan to know that they have been sold a dud project here, which is lies through and through.
During this period, you have said that Minister Ali Zaidi was in touch with you, and
Yes.
somebody else from Prime Minister's house was also in touch with you.
Somebody
So what
called.
was-
Yeah, somebody. I didn't catch
so
his name.
What was the promise? What were they offering you?
Two things we talked about. I did tell them this is not going to go away. I've been at this for 18 years, and I can stay at this for 18 more months. And for sure we're going to enforce this order. And he assured me that it's not going to come to that. Secondly, he assured me that the inquiry will be fair. A Supreme Court Justice, it was very impressive, Supreme Court Justice, okay. I didn't know they were going to appoint this fool, and would conduct a judicial inquiry in which witnesses would be called. They'd be asked to testify under oath at the risk of committing perjury. They'd have to tell the story, and documents and evidence would be submitted. None of this happened. None of this
So the
happened.
assurance was from Ali Zaidi, Minister Ali
Correct. Correct. And then when Imran Khan, somebody pretending or claiming to be the head of chief of the staff of the Prime Minister, called me and said that very, very shortly I'll be called by the Commission. And I said, well, please set up a video conference. The next thing I heard was, I think one of you journalists told me the report has come out. And I thought, oh, that's got to be very odd, because that was a funny report which I hadn't even seen. And then I saw this outrageous libel.
How many times he contacted you, Ali Zaidi?
We spoke twice.
Okay, and when he made a first contact?
At the height of when Broadsheet, at the height of it, when we seized the accounts, and there was the whole scandal of David Rose and all this sort of thing. It is the Rose Gallery were all in touch, so that's what it came to.
How are your relations with David Rose now?
You could try a career as a comedian, No, David Rose, I have utter contempt for David Rose. You do know that he was found to be a racist by the English courts because of that dispute that there was. David Rose is not the David Rose of the 2003 to 2004 when I was doing Guantanamo Bay cases. Shall we say, people are as good as they are today, or in this case, as bad as they are today.
Broadsheet Commission report, it pins blame on some people, then recommends criminal proceedings against them. I mean, have you seen that? Do you think that the report actually justifies pinning some people, but
It's
completely
a farce. It's a farce. That report is a farce. This man was given a commission to go and do something in order to cover up, in order to set people up. That's what he's done. He's set a few people up, and he's covered up a few people, and he's received a very handsome check, and clearly doesn't have much of a conscience. He has not done a great service to the people of Pakistan.
So so far there's two ministers in contact, Shahzad Akbar and Ali Zaidi. Anyone else contact you as a ministerial level?
This chap who was he claimed to be the head of Imran Khan's office, chief of staff. Yes.
Three contacts.
I was driving. I didn't catch his name, and I just said, "Look, I'm not interested in talking chief of staff. If Imran wants to talk to me, he's got my number." The people of Pakistan deserve better than this. They deserve to know that when the pretense is made that there's going to be a judicial inquiry, there really is a judicial inquiry. That is to say, witnesses are called, evidence is taken, testimony under oath is taken and is examined. If that's not happened, if that's not the procedure that has been followed, that is not a judicial inquiry. If a judicial inquiry is looking into corruption, even more so, doubly more so, I would have thought these prerequisites are required. Mr. Justice, former Justice, has gone so far as to accuse one of the leading scholars of civil military relations in Pakistan, as being nothing other than a show person who has said some very derogatory, very unpleasant words about her. But I noticed he said nothing about the man who gave evidence on behalf of the generals and on behalf of NAB at the time, whose evidence was shown by Sir Anthony Evans to be fraudulent and wrong. What he said before Sir Anthony was contradicted by what he'd written in his book, and that was pointed out to Sir Anthony. Did felon. Quite the contrary, he accepted my evidence, as did Oxford University's law faculty. That's why they appointed me as the head of public interest law.
Mr. Moussavi, your witness was Aisha Siddiqa. What was the link between you and Aisha Siddiqa, or Broadsheet and Aisha Siddiqa? She had nothing to do with Broadsheet.
She had nothing to do with Broadsheet. I didn't know Aisha Siddiqa from Adam, except she was a renowned scholar. I asked at Oxford University, who do they recommend who understands the ins and outs of Pakistani politics in that particular period? And a number of academics recommended Dr. Siddiqa. I looked her up, I looked at her books, and they were pretty compelling. This, I will tell you, the generals who appeared at the tribunal, they were petrified of the fact that she was there, because she knew exactly who these people were, and they knew exactly what they were gone up to. This business of General Amjad and the cowardice of this justice to attack Farooq Adam Khan, he's no longer here, who was the man of integrity at the time, who pursued this with diligence. He's no longer there to defend himself. General Amjad said at the hearing that he was appalled at the plunder. He used the word plunder several times. He said, I was appalled at the plunder that my country suffered at the hands of its ruling elite. What does this man have to say about that? Not a word. Is this a fair inquiry? Not, absolutely not. Should we believe what he's saying? Clearly not. What do I think of him? He's a fraud. He's a crook who has engaged in misleading the people of Pakistan, and within 7 days I shall sue him for defamation of my character.
So
You've been sold a dud product, Mr. Prime Minister. If you can't see that, clearly you're not a fit and proper person to be Prime Minister of Pakistan. If you believe this is a judicial inquiry where not a single piece of evidence was taken, despite the fact that your minister gave me his word that they would reach out to me and they would ask me. Well, if they reached out to you, then they reached out to me, because they haven't. I would say to the Prime Minister that I had greater expectation from an Oxford man, that all the song and dance about we are a clean government. Is this what a judicial inquiry under your government looks like? Well, it certainly doesn't look like a judicial inquiry to me.
What was the conversation that was taking place?
I sent a message to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, how long is this charade going to go on for? That foolish man you sent to see me, Shahzad Akbar, he clearly demonstrated he doesn't have the basic understanding of the rule of law. A court has ordered, Pakistan has appealed and lost. There is no further legal remedies. Come and settle your bill. He didn't do it. The minister who got in touch with me said, I guarantee, I give you my word, we're going to do it. They didn't do it. So 3 weeks ago, we found more money in the and we froze it. And we wrote to Pakistan's lawyers and asked them to accept service of the documents. They wouldn't do it. This is going to mean more costs, more delay, more interest to the people of Pakistan. Is this what a responsible government would do? We're talking serious American dollars. Is this what the people of Pakistan deserve? Prime Minister Imran Khan, we had greater expectations from your government. We thought that your government is going to be different. We thought that you would obey court orders. We thought that you wouldn't allow this charade to continue. And yet, again, we've had to freeze more assets of the government of Pakistan, and we've got to go through the whole process again at very considerable cost, which of course the government of Pakistan are going to have to pay. Sorry, the people of Pakistan are going to have to pay in order to enforce something which one letter would have sold. A letter with a first-class stamp on it, which cost 55 pence, would have solved this problem. This is going to cost the people of Pakistan another $100,000. Is that necessary? No. Simply because nobody wants to take responsibility for obeying court orders. That's the reality. I am profoundly disappointed with Imran Khan.